Let's get into percent problems. So, first, we need to take a look at some definitions. And what is the uh, percent proportion is what we need to consider. So, you're going to see uh, in your textbook, most textbooks have this proportion: P over B is equal to R over 100. Well, what does that mean? So, P is the part. And sometimes you'll see the textbooks call this the percentage. I don't like calling it the percentage because I feel like that kind of it can confuse us. So, to avoid confusing us, I like to call P the part. Okay. B is called the base or the whole. R is called the rate. So, another way to look at this, especially when we're getting into word problems, is this: is over of is equal to the percent number over 100. Okay? So we can look at this like this. Our part is the number closest to the word is. Our base, or the whole, is the number closest to the word of. And our percent rate is the number without the percent sign. So here's just an example of what this looks like. Okay. If we have 3/4, all right, that is the same as 75 over 100. So from the lesson on Introduction to Percents, we learned how to take our fraction. So the fraction becomes the decimal, which becomes the percent. So you can see how these three things are all interconnected. Okay. And we're going to use this knowledge to move us forward. So we have a couple of things that we can do right now. So, a couple of examples here. Uh, so, let's say that we are given uh, oh, yes, sorry. I want to put a heading on this. So let me move this. Okay. So the heading on this one, this is going to be when P is unknown. All right. And I want us to remember P over base. So part over base is equal to rate over 100. And that's the same as is over of is equal to our percent over 100. Okay. So in this case, we are focusing on P being unknown. That is the piece that we don't know. So some ways that we might see this written. And these are all equivalent ways of writing or interpreting this. So we could see what is 30% of 50. Okay. Or we could say, find 30% of 50. Or we could say 30% of 50 is what number? And all three of these things are saying the exact same thing. So if you notice, okay, we have the is. Well, we have the 30% that's really close to that, but that's the percent rate. So that ends up being the what? The unknown. Okay. So you see that the unknown is really close to the is. And here we have the percent number or the percent rate. Okay. So that's always going to go in the rate spot, no matter how we're looking at this. And then we have the word of, and the number closest to that is 50. So that goes in the base spot. And regardless of where these things are, okay, so I can go through and highlight all of this. There's our percent in that one. There's our percent in this one. So find, kind of equivalent to what is. All right. So we can see where all of these numbers go. Well, no matter which way we go, okay, we're going to have our unknown. Actually, I'm a big fan of color because I feel like it really helps us to kind of see where things are. Okay. So we know that this is going to be 50. We take our percent rate and write it without the percent, because remember, percent, the definition of percent is for each 100 or per 100. So rather than writing 30 with the percent symbol, we write 30. And then for the word per, we write our fraction line and then 100. Okay. And now we are ready to solve this. And regardless of which form this is being presented in, we still get the same thing. So we have 100p is equal to 1500, which means that P is equal to 15. So that is when P is unknown. All right, so the next one, let's take a look at when R is unknown. Mm, okay, so we still have the part over the base equal to the percentage rate over 100. And that, remember, is the same as is over of is equal to your number from the percent over 100. Okay. So the way that we are going to see this written, you could say 5 is what percent of 8. You could see find what percent 5 is of 8. And you could also see what percent of 8 is 5. So again, we're going to consider this, okay? So R is our unknown. R is the number portion of the percent. Okay? So we have the what percent. Those are kind of the keywords that are cluing us in that we are looking for percent. Okay? Here we have is, and the number closest to that is 5. Okay? So is, that is the part. And again, we have the word is, and the number closest is 5. We have the word is, and the number closest. And then we have the word of, and the number closest. Of, and the number closest. Of, and the number closest. Okay? So these are going to get set up exactly as they are written. So we have 5, because that's the is, over 8, because that's the of, is equal to the rate over 100. Well, this becomes 8 times R is equal to 500, which becomes R is equal to, and you want to do 500 divided by 8, which is going to give you 62.5. And this is where we're going to throw the percent symbol back on because we don't have the, it's not 62.5 over 100. Because we're not writing it in the form 62.5 over 100, we put the percent symbol in there. All right, and now the final one. The final one, when the base is unknown. So we'll slide this up a little bit. And let's put that heading in there. So when the base or the whole is unknown. Okay. So we still have part over base or whole is equal to our percent number over 100, which is the same as is over of is equal to percent over 100. Okay. So again, we are looking for the of or the base or the whole. We're going to be given the part and we're going to be given the percent. So how are some ways that this might be written? Well, we could see this written as 8.7 is 30% of what number? Or we could see it written as 30% of what number is 8.7. Or we could see it written, find a number such that 30% of it is 8.7. Okay, so you can see our percentage number here and here and here. Now we see the word is and the number closest to it. That's not the percent. See the word is and the number closest to it is, and the number closest to it. And then we have the word of. We have the word of. And here, this is kind of getting into a little bit of grammar and sentence structure because here we have the word of, and closest to it is it. But what does the it mean? Okay. Well, the it is referring to the number. Okay? So this gets set up the same way as all of them. Okay? So we have our part 8.7. We are seeking our base or the whole. And we are given the percent. And this translates into 30 times B or the whole. And you can use whatever variables you want for these. I prefer to use the letters because I think they make the most sense. And that is equal to 870. And when we divide both sides by 30, we get that B is equal to 29. Okay, so then the last thing that I want to look at is a word problem really quickly here and look at how to set this up, okay? So I'm actually gonna set up a text box here so that I can do this a little bit quicker. So if you answered 37 problems correctly on a 42 question test, what percent of the problems did you answer correctly? Okay. Well, let's think about this because, again, okay, I want to emphasize that we still have the same principle here. We still have part over whole or base is equal to the percent number over 100. Okay. So we are asking what percent. That's what we're looking for. So we're seeking out this piece right here. Okay. This is what we're looking for. We are given the part and the whole. So think about this. You answered 37 problems correctly on a 42 question test. So what do you think is the whole? What do you think is the base? How many total questions were on that exam? Well, if you answered 42, you'd be correct. There are 42 total questions. That is the whole number of questions that is on that exam. The part that you answered correctly is 37. And you are seeking out the rate. Okay? So here we get that 42R would be equal to 3,700, which means that R, when we divide both sides by 42, we get 88. And if we're just rounding, say, to the nearest whole number, then that's where we would be. So 88%, because we're looking for a percent. So with every one of these lessons, please reach out if you have questions. I am here to help in any way I can.